He walked into the interview room with nothing but hope and hard work behind him. He had the skills, the degree, and the determination. But before he even opened his mouth, they had already decided, because of the color of his skin. He left that building humiliated, with his dream shattered, but what no one knew was that the same company that rejected him would soon be on its knees, begging for his leadership. How did it happen? This is the story they never expected. Jordan Matthews had always believed that hard work could open any door. Growing up in a small town, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs, he learned early that success was earned, not given. Books became his escape, late nights at the library his training ground. By the time he graduated from one of the top universities in the country, Jordan had built a resume that any company would envy. Degrees in business, internships with glowing recommendations, and a vision for the future. He dreamed of working at one of the biggest corporations in the city, a company he had admired since childhood. He studied their strategies, memorized their growth charts, and even wrote papers in college about how they could improve. When the day of the interview finally came, he wore his only tailored suit, polished his shoes until they shined, and carried himself with quiet confidence. But there was one thing Jordan couldn't control: how people chose to see him. The receptionist's raised eyebrows, the whispered looks as he walked in, the long pause when the hiring manager glanced at his skin before looking at his resume. It all spoke louder than words. Still, Jordan pushed forward, believing his qualifications would be enough. What he didn't know was that this day would not only test his strength, it would ignite a chain of events that would flip the balance of power in ways no one saw coming. The interview room was cold, the kind of cold that made every second feel longer. Jordan sat across from 3 executives, each one flipping through his resume with the same detached expression. He spoke with clarity and confidence, explaining his ideas for expanding the company's reach into new markets, detailing strategies he had researched for years. But instead of nods or curiosity, he was met with blank stares, and then a thin, forced smile. "Thank you for coming in," one of them said, sliding his papers aside. The words were final, polite, and dismissive. They didn't ask questions. They didn't discuss his achievements. Within minutes, the interview was over. Jordan walked out of the building, his chest heavy, his future dimmed. Outside, the city buzzed with energy, but Jordan felt invisible, reduced to nothing more than a label. Weeks passed, and rejection letters followed, each one cloaked in professionalism, but hiding the same unspoken truth. He was denied not because he lacked talent, but because of the color of his skin. Still, Jordan refused to stop. He took small consulting jobs, helping local businesses restructure their finances. Word spread quickly about his brilliance. A small bookstore he advised doubled its sales within months. A struggling restaurant owner turned his advice into a thriving chain. Jordan didn't just give solutions, he built futures. One evening, as he worked late in his cramped apartment, an unexpected call came. A mid-sized company on the brink of collapse had heard about him. They needed saving, and they offered him full control to turn things around. Jordan accepted. Within 2 years, he transformed that company into a powerhouse, outpacing even the very corporation that once turned him away. Then came the irony. The big corporation, the same one that dismissed him without a second thought, was facing a financial storm. Their outdated strategies, lack of innovation, and poor leadership had left them bleeding money. Investors were panicking. Desperate, they began searching for someone with vision. That search led them straight back to the man they had once rejected. But Jordan wasn't the same hopeful graduate anymore. He was now a leader, respected across industries, with companies lining up for his expertise. The tables had turned, and the company that once saw no value in him was now begging for a chance at his guidance. The boardroom was filled with tension the day Jordan walked back into that building. The same polished floors, the same glass walls. But this time, he wasn't a nervous young man hoping for approval. He was the man they needed, the one holding the keys to their survival. Every executive sat straight, their faces tight with unease, as the CEO introduced him not as a candidate, but as a potential savior. Jordan listened as they laid out their problems: declining profits, lost investors, collapsing trust. Every word confirmed what he already knew. Their empire was crumbling. The same people who once dismissed him without a question now leaned forward, desperate for his solutions. And then it hit him. He remembered the way the hiring manager's eyes had scanned him years ago, not seeing his achievements, but only his skin. He remembered walking out of this building humiliated, carrying rejection like a weight on his shoulders. Now those same eyes avoided his gaze, filled instead with quiet shame. Jordan didn't lash out. He didn't need to. His presence in that room was proof enough of the injustice he had endured, and of the power he had built despite it. Calmly, he outlined a plan that could save their company, but he made it clear. It would happen on his terms, no shortcuts, no empty promises. If they wanted his leadership, they would have to trust him fully, without prejudice. The silence that followed was heavy. These were people who had once thought themselves untouchable, now cornered by their own failures. And as they agreed one by one, Jordan realized this wasn't just about business. This was about justice, about standing in the very place where he was once denied, now as the man they could no longer afford to ignore. Jordan accepted their offer, but not for the reasons they expected. For him, this was never about revenge. It was about rewriting the story, proving that talent and vision cannot be caged by prejudice. As he stepped into his new role, he didn't just save the company, he reshaped it. Policies were changed, diversity was embraced, and opportunities were opened for people who had once been overlooked, just like him. Within a few years, the company that had nearly collapsed became one of the strongest in the industry, and much of that success was credited to Jordan's leadership. But beyond profits and numbers, something deeper had shifted. Employees felt seen. Voices that were once silenced were finally heard. A culture of fairness began to grow where ignorance once thrived. For Jordan, the journey was bittersweet. He often thought back to that first interview, the day he was dismissed without a chance to prove himself. That pain never left him, but it fueled his determination to create a future where no one else would have to face what he had endured. In the end, his story wasn't just about one man denied a job. It was about resilience, about turning rejection into power, and about holding a mirror to a society that still struggles with its own biases. Because here's the truth. Discrimination may try to close doors, but perseverance has the power to break them wide open. And Jordan's story is a reminder to all of us. What we choose to see or refuse to see in others can shape not just their future, but our own. So ask yourself, how many brilliant minds are we still turning away? And how long will it take before we finally learn that talent has no color? And that was Jordan's story, a man the world once doubted, who proved that no barrier can hold back true talent. His journey reminds us that rejection is never the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of something far greater. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect, because these struggles are real and they continue every day. Share this video with someone who needs hope, and let's keep these conversations alive. Don't forget to like this video if you believe in change, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that the world needs to hear. Together we can make sure voices like Jordan's are never silenced again.